All right, so welcome everyone. I'm Michael Naylor, and I'm the leader of the Maine Enneagram Center for Transformation and Change here in South Portland, Maine. And today I have the pleasure of meeting with Claus, who is living in Denmark and teaching and working in Denmark, I believe, and is a robust type 8, our very favorite types. The ones that have all the go power. So I always lean on my type 8 friends for a little bit more juice in my system, and it always works. So anyway, he's going to tell us about his journey, the agony, the ecstasy, and the in-betweens. And so just want to maybe just start by introducing yourself and talking about what you do, and then, maybe starting in with how you discovered the Enneagram.
Yeah, well, I've been an Enneagram teacher for nearly 20, close to 25 years now, and I was at that before I met the Enneagram. I worked with sales. I was an international sales manager for many years, and of course I met other typology tools, Myers-Briggs, DISC, mainly DISC, and so on. So I had the kind of resistance towards typology tools and being put in boxes and all that we've heard many times. And when I was introduced to the Enneagram, actually it started with I started with NLP, Neuro Linguistic Programming, which is very familiar with Tom Condon and so on. So I started with NLP originally, and there was a teacher at one of the modules talking about the Enneagram, and I was to be frank and honest, I was shocked to my bone that there was a system or a vocabulary that could reveal not only what I did but the reasons why I did it, and the outside of my style, but more shockingly, the inside. It was like at one point being seen and another point being revealed in front of a group, like, holy shit, how do they know?
Yeah,
it was,
yeah.
it was very powerful, and I made the decisions a couple of weeks later. Then we had this ending ceremony, getting diplomas and so on. I was just keen to realize that I need to learn this tool. I will teach it to other people, and I will do that for the remaining of my life.
Wow. Well, that's similar to me. Is when I discovered my type, it was actually kind of horrifying to be seen so nakedly, and then when I first took a course with Russ, I just felt like this is what I've been looking for my entire life. So there's some similarities there, and I still continue to be shocked from time to time. But so for you, what are the kind of characteristics that you identify with as being type 8ish? What comes to mind?
When I teach the Enneagram today, of course I see a lot of students who are in doubt about their type, and they can see I could be a type X, I could be a type Y, I was never for a moment in doubt at all. It was like, that's me.
Yeah.
Uh, what I can see going back all the way to my childhood is the protecting figure, fighting for justice, fighting for what I mean, fighting for what I see, being too much, taking up too much space, being too noisy. And you can you can just take the books and you can just read out loud, and I can just say check, 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 check. So
Yeah.
I'm the oldest brother. I have a type 7 sister who is 50 plus years old, and we have laughed about the Enneagram for 20 years. And when she was little, she was sorry to say it, she was kind of fat. She was
Hmm.
a big girl, and
Hmm.
and we lived in a small town, and she was on top of being overweight. She wore glasses at that time, and back in the 70s, she had very thick glasses. So,
Mm.
and then on top of that, she had a plaster on her eyes because she couldn't see straight. So she was an easy target to make fun of.
Yeah.
And I still this day we laugh about that. My old teachers and my old friends say it was very well known that if you were teasing my sister, no matter if you were an adult or you were a child, Claus would find you within the sunset, and I would beat you up because I remember so clearly that she was
Mm.
today I can see vulnerable. She was weak and she couldn't protect herself because she was this little, and she was my baby sister. So I would, and I did fight for her every single time I had the chance.
Yeah. Wow. So that protector spirit was really strong in you. Uh, so in your, when you heard as a little guy, you're too much or you're too big, did that stop you, or you just kept going forward, being big and loud and robust, and how did it affect you?
I think it's a both and. I remember the feeling, and this is why I relate so strongly with force, and I think it goes the other way around. I got this feeling that I was wrong. It was like other children are more. I was actually pretty polite. I was actually well mannered. So it wasn't because I was a bully. It wasn't because I didn't behave well. But this feeling that when I was with adult people, it was like there's something wrong with me. It's like they I didn't get the feeling that they didn't like me. It was just like his
Yeah.
and a part of me said, screw you, fuck you. I do what I do. So I had kind of two chances. I could either become too much, even increase my energy just for the fun of it or for the too provocative, or I could feel that I was wrong. I was a bad child. So it was like the black sheep of the family. Even though I was pretty popular and I was pretty funny when I was very socially accepted, but I had this small feeling, and I remember very, very clearly when I was in junior school or whatever you call it in the US. I was like 7, 8, 9 years old. I remember very clearly an adult person said in Danish, she said, not alone you fill up the room too much, but you are too much. And it was like I didn't understand what
Mm.
does that mean? What
Mm.
does it mean to be too much?
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that mean I could be too little as well? And I knew it was not the size, it was not how big I was. It was like something, and I could see in her face, and I would when I looked at her facial expression that it was definitely not good to be too much.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I wonder, when I've heard that put on different type eights, it seems like it's people have a hard time tolerating their energy level, their instinctual energy that's, just when they're even standing still, there's like, I can feel the energy currents coming off them, right? And so it seems like people either love that or they hate it, or they make it wrong, or they wish they could be that way. But I think, as I've heard people say, type 8 saying, learning to notice when I'm putting off energy that's too much for people to handle is a part of my practice because I'm just used to my energy field and it just feels alive and good. So has that been something that you've taken note of? Is just noticing like, okay, sometimes I'm just being myself. People are dropping on the floor and I don't know why. It's like, is that, what's that been like for you?
I remember when I did my certification in the Enneagram Institute, we had at a certain time we had this exercise where we were getting in touch with our tribal energy. Like, and I remember we moved and we touched and we were clapping our hands. It was like ooh, getting into that earthy energy. And I remember I did martial art for many years. I remember I did it, and I remember when I stood there and I could see people around me. They were crying and they were like, "Whoa!" They got insights, and I was just that's just life.
Yeah,
That's that.
yeah,
That's how I feel when I go to the bank to to withdraw money. So it was like it was a little bit like, is don't you feel like that? That's like kind of my state.
Yeah.
And ever since I knew the Enneagram, I'm still working on my energy. And I have this mixed emotions about it that I know for a fact that I have become the teacher. I remember Tom Condon many years ago called me. He said to me, "You're a little bit like the Enneagram rock star because you are this." And I was a little bit like, "Is that good or bad?" Uh, because I know Tom pretty well. I think it was a compliment in his own funny way.
Yeah.
So I still have this feeling that I became the Enneagram teacher I am today. I became the public speaker I am today because I have this energy. And I still have to work on don't make it too much. Make sure that it's appropriate. And
Hmm.
especially in the last couple of years where, all the so me and what's allowed to say and how what can be said in gender wise, religion wise.
Yeah, it's pretty touchy.
And in the old days, I had a hard time finding my way around in that. Today, it's almost impossible. No matter what I say, it's like, holy shit. So a part of me wants to fight it, kind of, or to make it stop. It's almost like I think it's
Yeah.
become too much. I know I'm a kind person. I love people. I love the Enneagram. I love all gender. I like all religion. I don't. But I still have this feeling that it's wrong to be brutally honest,
Yep. Well,
and that gives me more some issues from time to time. Being an Enneagram teacher.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's one of the great gifts I think for the eight is being able to just cut through the bullshit with brutal honesty, with the intention of bringing change or transformation. And I know I worked for 4 or 5 years with one of my co-counselors was a type 8, and he could always spot who were the sincere people trying to get sober and get healthy and who had the mask on that made them look like they were trying. And he could feel it in his body instantly, and he would just call them out of the blue, and it would just crack open the whole truth of the situation. And then others who were more, I always loved working with him because I never had to guess where he was with things. He just said it. And that kind of directness was really powerful. And I think what's hard today is I think the type 1 energy is co-opting the intelligence of the planet around getting nitpicky about every word that's spoken and what exactly it means. Not to diss the ones, because I have a lot of great one friends, but there's some kind of hyper politically correct aura that's sort of come over us all where we just have to, you know, micromanage what we say. So that I think it's a tough situation. And thank God for eights. I invite you to just keep blowing it up as you see it, so that I'll have more freedom to speak my mind too. So
Yeah, and that's actually one of the things I say when I do Enneagram teaching is that all eights I think out there have heard you take up the room too much, you say too much, you say too blunt, you say too loud, you say blah blah blah. But every time shit hits the fan, people call us out and say, "Nah, bring forward the eights now. The eights can stop this mania." And a kind of me is kind of proud of it,
yeah,
and another part of me is like wanting to tell you, "Fuck you, you can do it."
yeah,
You're a brutally honest type 4 with emotions. Why can't you do it? Why
yeah,
why why am I being put out to take your garbage because you don't dare? But there's a part of me that wants to do it because I fully agree on what you're saying. I think yeah, it's kind of type 1 energy that this is not correct and this is not allowed and this is not. I
yeah,
often say to people, it depends on if it comes from an honest place, if I'm still emotionally kind, if what I say you can sense into that I'm not saying this to be rude to you. I'm
yeah,
telling this, and I'm having this. I normally say here in Denmark, I say if I had money enough which means I don't have to be rich, but I could pay my bills. I would go more direct with my speak about this because I think it's coming to a point where it's crazy.
Yeah,
I think it's gone too far, and
yeah,
everything that goes too far becomes a problem. Too,
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's gotten quite complicated. Let's put it that way. Um, and there's like so many different codes you have to know, so you don't say the wrong adjective to describe a certain situation or person or sexuality or gender or whatever. But that said, it's I think fours and eights are particularly sensitive to emotional honesty and truth. They have a different way of maybe working with it. But when you think about issues of the heart, sometimes it seems to me there are two types who get described more often about their awfulness than other types. Like the type eight, hear people say, "Oh, those type eights, blah blah blah," and then other people will say, "Oh my God, you should try living with a type four. That's like living with a vampire." But all the types down the levels are a pain in the neck. But I wonder for you that whole capacity to share your heart, your loving kindness. I know with eights in my life, when I feel loved by them, it's often very powerfully felt. It's kind of like, boom, that's the kind of love I have for you, and give me a hug that just about squeezes the blood out of me. But there's this kind of, big magnanimous heart, and I think I've noticed that eights get a bad rap around not being in contact with their heart. I just wonder what your experience has been with that.
First of all, no doubt about it. I remember when we met at the Enneagram Prison Project. I've told many times that if I was born in if I was born in a bad part of US and the Harlem in New York or whatever, one of the gangster, I
Yeah,
could have easily have become a bad person, a
yeah,
gang member, or
yeah.
because I've always been attracted to the danger, to the power persons, no matter what type they were. It was like, oh, that's the badass. I want to be close to that person, no matter it was male or female.
Yeah.
Um, but I met the Enneagram when I'm turning 59 in a next week. So I think I was around 30, 35 years old, around that 34, something like that, when I met the Enneagram. And I was pretty well in touch with my emotions. One of the reasons is I've been married to a type 4 for,
Oh,
for 24 years.
wow, you survived.
And she was, of course, she taught me that we had to talk about emotions. That doesn't mean I liked it in the startup, but I like the honesty. I like the being, the opposite of me. I was tough on the outside, but soft on the inside, and she was soft on the outside, but very tough on the inside. So I kind of learned to be in touch with my emotions, and my daily practice with the Enneagram make me in touch with my emotions. I
Hmm.
have a lot of emotions. People who know me know my guess is that I cry 10 times per week when I do Enneagram teaching.
Yeah.
But it's been rough. It was kind of when I opened my heart, it was like I never ever want to go back. And I can from time to time feel that when I'm getting sad or angry or disappointed with people, I feel it's almost like the door is shutting in.
Hmm.
And then I remind myself how painful it is to withhold my emotions. And I keep it open and make sure. And I think some of the times where I still get accepted, even though I say things that are politically incorrect or too blunt, is that there is so many people out there now that know that I'm a kind person. I really, really want to make people grow. The way I make them grow, I think, is of course teaching the Enneagram, but I do it in as you said with your partner, it was like, don't bullshit me. Either we do it, or just accept that you won't do it. Either we talk about this from an honest place, or we just talk about it like it could be spreadsheet. That's okay with me. If that's what you want, you get the Enneagram in that version. But I want to bring you further. And that means that I have to be honest to you, towards myself and to you.
Mhm.
And I don't think I could be a successful Enneagram teacher for 25 years if I didn't have my heart open.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've talked with a couple of eights who, like yourself, have had a lot of experience, and they say that they're, working with the heart. When they're in touch with it, it's alive and they feel it deeply, but there's almost like a gravitational pull to close down a little bit and have that protective layer there. If they're not really paying attention, they can find that they can start shutting down. And I just wondered if you had any particular practices that you do that assist you in keeping your heart open.
I the fear of being rejected is a very, very strong emotion. So I've been working with that for years. I'm engaged and I'm about to be married to a type 2. My wife, I don't remember if I said it, sorry, but my wife died on me from cancer in 2016. And since then, I met Christina, my beautiful sexual type 2. And I work closely to Susanne Poulsen, who's a sexual type 5. So I'm working with people who have rejection as a common field, and that's an ongoing pattern for me. That the minute I feel that people withdraw, the minute I get a sense that they don't want me, the second I get in doubt about me, I'm convinced that you're about to leave me.
Yeah.
I'm convinced. Just as an example, you and I, we had this tried to have this meeting a couple of weeks ago, and we had problems with our internet, and we rescheduled so we could meet today. And the minute I closed my laptop, there's almost like a small voice in me said, he won't reach out.
Oh,
He will probably send me an email that we can do that next year or something. It comes
yeah.
immediately.
Yeah. It's deep. Yeah.
So you ask me what I do for practice. I convinced myself, I ask myself, is it the truth or is it your own perception, Klaus?
Yeah.
And most likely it's me making a narrative that going back to the pattern we talked about being a child, it's most people, I have most of my friends going back 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. I have a lot of friends going back all the way, and we've experienced goods and bads, and we had arguments and fights, and we love each other, and we cry, and we get ourselves into arguments. But there is this feeling that, like I always say to people, if you have a type 8 friend out there, I often say to people, the reason it's why it's so difficult for me to open my heart is not that I don't want to feel loved or give love to you. The truth is that I'm terrified that if I open my heart, first of all, you can take my heart and run away. You can wound me. You can make me vulnerable. That's one thing. And another thing is when I take you in, you really, really mean something to me.
Yeah.
And I over and over again experience in my life that people I took in and I protected them. I make sure it can be employees, it can be friends, it can be students. I have this feeling that I take you in, and even though I do that, you abandon me.
Hmm.
So every time I'm getting rejected, I become even more afraid to open my heart next time.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is to be understood.
Well, well, it's a powerful pattern, and I know when I first started learning about my core patterns, which is, abandonment seems to revolve around a sense of I'm insignificant and and generic and really nothing. Uh, I figured I should be able to get through this pattern in the next 5 years, right? Well, it's been, let's see, almost 35 years, and it's like when I feel it now, it's even sharper than ever because I'm more awake and more open. It's like, oh my God, there's that little boy in there who's certain no one's going to notice him and would not want to have anything to do with him. So it's an uncanny process, but I appreciate your articulating it because my wife is a type 2, and that rejection pattern is like so close. It's almost like we go to bed at night and we're connected, and we get up in the morning, and it's like she needs to find out whether we're still connected the next morning. And I'm going, yes, we've been at this 27 years. We're still connected, but it's so immediate to her, that feeling of being rejected or discarded. So,
And
yeah.
of course, my first pattern, the minute I sense that somebody is about to withdraw,
Mm,
I immediately go to the F word. Fuck you. You don't abandon me. I abandon you. So fuck you.
yeah.
You're out of me. But today I can see the pattern, and I'm more aware of what's happening here. What's happening within
Mm,
the baby Claus in me.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's why I very often say to people when I did a public speaking a couple of hours ago in Denmark, where I said, when you're really in trouble, really, if you're really is in trouble as a person, I will bet you that one of the persons you would probably call if you're really, really in trouble would be type 8, because I would be there. It can be I would be angry. It can be I would say, why are you calling me 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever, but I would be there.
Yeah.
And the reason why I don't call you is I don't want to be seen as weak, but more significantly, if I call you and I ask you to help me, don't disappoint me.
Hmm.
If you don't come and help me, I will be devastated and I will probably never call you again. That's how painful it is,
Yeah.
not as a threat towards you, but that's how painful it is in me.
Yeah.
That's why it's so difficult for me to reach out and ask for help. Because if I put my vulnerability out here and I ask you to hold me, and if you say no, it's like stabbing me straight to the heart.
Yep.
So I'd rather don't ask. I'd rather go with all my problems by myself. I'd rather go exercise. I'd rather go for a run. I'd rather drink a beer. I'd rather go for a bicycle trip or whatever. I'd rather work myself out of it instead of making myself vulnerable to whomever wants to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so resonate with that, especially I was thinking of one woman, a type 8, who talked about that pattern as you just described it. And she said, when I go out on dates, I let the guy know, first off, I don't need you. So just so you know, and if
Yeah.
you hurt me, if you hurt me, that's it. So do you want to keep dating me? No, no, thank you, but thanks for the invitation. But that sense of just, and I think that probably each type has some, a similar kind of Achilles heel, but it shows up a different way. I know as a 4, if you betray me or I feel like you betrayed me, I may never speak to you the rest of my life. I mean, it's just because it goes so deep and so penetrating. So, do you notice, or have you developed a way of communicating that with people you're really close to, so that so it gets triggered and you cut their head off, and then you come back and maybe try to bring some reconciling to it?
I think I'm fortunate enough to I have 2 children. I have my son Christian, who's a type 9. He
Oh.
is 27 years old, and I have a daughter, Sophie,
Hmm.
who's 23 years old. And I have two bonus children, Matilde, who's 23 years, type 8 as well. And I have Ophelia, who's 16 years old, bonus daughter, who's type 9 as well. And I'm fortunate enough to all our children, mine children and Christina's children, they love the Enneagram. They have done multiple classes of the Enneagram. They understand it pretty well. So we have a pretty honest conversation about this from time to time, which can be painful because recently I had a very good talk. We had a very good talk that Christina, my fiancée and wife to come, unfortunately got breast cancer a couple of years back, and now she's fully recovered and everything is okay. But when she got cancer and I was in the cancer again, of course I was devastated. I was shocked to my bone,
Mm.
and my protecting figure immediately took over again. Like I had to be there one more time, and I will find that strength. But on my side, I had Mathilde, who is Christina's daughter. She did the same. She was like standing up, like, that's my mom who's ill. So without talking about it, we competed on who's protecting Christina. It was the feeling that I'm protecting. I'm the fucking man. I'm the guy. And she protected. She's my mom. So fuck off. So without being angry with each other, there was this pattern of two, almost like two lions going
Hmm.
around and making sure that mom slash Christina was okay.
Yeah.
And we could talk about that month and years after that. It was so powerful within us that
Mm.
we it was like I can't even rest, because even though I could say now it's Mathilde, or Mathilde could say now it's Claus, we were still like aware that yeah, but who can I count? Can I count on? And we both had that feeling.
Yeah, I like the image of two lions, just being there at the ready. Very, very 80s. I think of the image of the lion or the dragon, protective dragon.
I prefer the line. That's a fact. I
Yeah,
don't, I know the dragon. I have the dragon within me.
yeah,
But one thing I have to say, and I say that over and over again. I like when people who know type eights, instead of me being the eight telling you or people that I'm actually a sweet and gentle and kind person, I really, really get soft on the inside when people publicly say that I'm actually a very kind person. I recently had a student who said she said, "Oh, you wasn't as bad as I thought you were." I said, "Why do you think that? You an eight, yeah, and who told you that eights are bad? I'm just straightforward. I'm just to the bone. I'm just telling you. That doesn't mean I'm not soft. It doesn't mean I'm not caring or empathic. I just say it.
yeah,
What would you prefer? People going around talking about you behind I'm just telling it.
yeah. Well, it's a mystery to me because I've got three men who are type eights, good friends of mine, and all of them would have my back to my death, and also I have the sense of them having a robust love for me, and also, they're very wired around empowering other people to really own their own personal power and to really, just because it seems like there's something around empowering people to, not back down, but to really show up with their gifts and their strengths, which is another beautiful aspect of the eight that I've seen. But it's funny how that kind of strong, loving, robust energy can hit, I think it hits people on a non-verbal level and they get scared. Maybe they're scared of their own power. Maybe they've had painful experiences with folks who were powerful, but it doesn't, you know, so it must be confusing to you to be read differently, or, I will, whenever I teach and talk about the type 8, I say, the type 8, what I love about the type 8 is they are the one type that shows everything, including their neuroses, so you can trust them deeply. And when they're not like the sneaky other types, but I said one thing we know about type eights is when they're healthy, they're just amazingly deeply loving and caring and sensitive, and their heart is open, and they have a lot. There's a power behind their love, that comes through their heart. It's kind of like a a burning meteor that's just really, really beautiful. And people often say, "Gee, I've never heard anybody talk about the Type 8 that way." I said, "Well, I don't think you've met enough of them because they shine a bright light on the best of humanity." So I'm not sure why they get such a bad rap, except that like the Type 4, when they're neurotic, they demonstrate it in spades. You can't miss it. You go, "Oh my God, just get out of the room with this guy." But there's something about 4s and 8s that, they show everything. They tend to. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I think we shock people or provoke people because the shadow side of all of us is that suddenly it becomes clear that I'm hiding something within me. I very often say to my students, you can ask me every question you want, but I want to warn you, whatever you ask me, I will answer.
Mm,
So make sure that you want to know it. Don't ask me stuff. So when I answer,
mm,
you get shocked or provoked or angry. I
mm.
will tell you the truth. So
Oh,
can now I almost sound like Jack Nicholson here. So can you handle the truth? It's a little bit like, why are we going around bullshitting each other? So I that's one of my main teachings of the Enneagram is that let's reveal. That's why, by the way, that's why many times I've heard, that's why I have your book right here. I love your work. That's why
oh,
many times I've been asked why I don't do retreats for criminals, people, young children that can't behave well, because I have this combination of knowledge and power combined with nurturing and supportive, and I'm always kind of drawn to it. It's a little bit like I really would love to do it. If sometimes I don't think I have the tools, and it's just within me. So
mhm,
I think when I'm at my best, I think I'm very good at lifting people up. My son sometimes he's bigger than he's a big guy. My
mhm,
son he's a big guy, and he often say nobody nobody can hug me and tell me that they love me like you can, Dad.
oh,
When you do it, it's almost like my legs disappear underneath me.
oh,
It's like and I have to admit, the opposite goes when I'm angry with him. When I get say stupid things because I'm, as a parent, get angry with my children. So I think in one end of the scale, I can build people up more than most people, and
mhm,
unfortunately, on the other way, if
mhm,
I can put people down, and I
mm.
hate that part of me.
Yeah, I hear you. I have that too. It's almost like becoming the opposite of the gift. But it's all done from a passionate place, that's for sure. Yeah. Well, I really hear your appreciation of being a parent, and I wonder if you would say more about what it's been like to be a Type 8 dad.
For many years, I was 100% convinced that I should never, ever have children. I
Mm,
think most of my friends' children were beautiful and lovely, and I really liked when their parents brought them home. They were noisy, they were smelly, they interfered with what I want. So I was so much in my ego-driven system that I couldn't even comprehend the fact that why should I have children? They're just a waste of money and a waste of time and a waste of everything.
yeah.
And today I know deep inside it was because I was terrified that I suddenly had somebody that
Mm,
was vulnerable and I had to protect them. I had to be there for them. I couldn't reject them. I couldn't get rid of them. They were my children. And
mm.
it was almost to the point that I, from one day to another, decided now I want to have children.
Huh.
But I say over, my identity is not to be a dad. And my identity is a lot of things. I'm an Enneagram teacher. I'm a fishing friend. I'm a motorcycle friend, I'm a friend, and I'm a dad. So it's like when some Enneagram style talk about being parent, like that's why I'm here. That's not me.
Yeah.
I love being a dad, but it's not kind of my identity.
Yeah.
And I know if my children was here talking about me as a dad, I think I delivered what in US you call tough love. It was like I showed them love by doing something. If you want to learn to bicycle, let's go bicycle. If you have a hard time with math, let's sit down and make math. So
Mm.
so it was, and on the other side, I had this teddy bear energy that come to dad.
Mm.
I've always been very proud of my children. I talk highly and
Mm.
proudly about my children. And if I have the chance, I do it while they can hear it. So I make them look good publicly. And as I said, unfortunately, from time to time, I could snap publicly as well. And I think, I know that when they were small, they were from time to time they were afraid of me.
Mhm.
And I remember Ross many years ago said that when we go down the level and we go to level 5 and level 6, that we project and we make our children what we hate about us. And I remember I asked him with tears in my eyes if he really thought that I made my children feel weak when I was too much in my eightness. And he looked at me with his calm eyes and he said, "Yes, that's what you do, Claus. And Claus, Christian have told me." And I was about to faint. It was almost like that's
Mm.
not the kind of dad I want to be. I
Yeah.
want I want to be a supportive dad that teach my children to cope with life.
Mm.
So I can see I'm trying to sometimes rewind. I want them look more, I want them to be strong, not strong in a physical way, but I want them to be strong enough to cope with life when I'm
Yeah.
not around.
Yeah. Independent,
Yeah.
capable. Yeah. Yeah. Well, parenting is a challenge for
And
sure.
I after my wife died, which means my children only have me as a parent, that's really awakened my vulnerability. It's almost like today they're 27, and as I said, and 23. So if worst thing happened, they could cope with life. But I'm still terrified that if I die tomorrow, they don't have any parents. So I have this: how can
Mm.
I protect you if I'm
Yeah.
not here? I
Yeah.
still have that as a very, very deep pattern within me.
Mm. Mm. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Well, so that said, the as working with Russ and the Enneagram Institute's format, the whole idea of the passion of the 8 being lust or forcefulness, which is different than being using power in an empowering way. There's an edge there. So, what does that word forcefulness mean for you, or lust, when it's unhealthy or unconscious?
When it's unconscious, it grabs my attention, and I just go forward, and it takes an hour, a week, or a month, or whatever, or a second to realize this was too much.
Yeah,
Um, so it's almost like it goes from 0 to 60 miles, not in speed, but in intensity,
yeah,
like
yeah.
like that. And it's a little bit like if there's something I want, and on top of that, I'm a sexual one-on-one subtype. So it's almost like double up on lust. If I want something, why wait?
Yeah.
I really had a hard time uh, prolonging. If there is something I want to save money so I could buy this or that, no way. I want it now, and I want it big, and I want it colorful, and I want it in my hand, and I want it now. So it becomes like almost like I'm eating up something. It's almost like I
Wow.
take it in. It's like
Mm,
And whenever there's something bad going on in my life or in life in general, I have this inner feeling that no matter what happens, I can I can with that energy I can do whatever I want.
mm,
When it's good and it's not driving me, but it's there, it's like an internal volcano energy. It's almost like
mm.
I never run out of energy. It's like
Wow.
even though I'm sleeping like a baby, I have this feeling that God or the system itself recharges me while I'm asleep. So when I wake up again, it's like I'm fully I'm fully there again. So
Wow.
again, it's a little bit like either or, depending on if I use it well or if I use it bad.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like, mm, well, pretty easy access to energy and a kind of confidence about doing things, which it seems like, with the little eight kids, that I've been around, there's this kind of innate confidence, like how hard could this be? Let's try it, let's climb that tree. We could probably jump off the roof of the house and we'd be okay. Let's give it a go.
Mm.
But a kind of eager confidence and also almost like rubbing up against the edge of danger. There's something that the eights seem to get inspired by.
Mm.
So for you today, what are your passions? Like what are the things that you notice your passion in?
I'm very, very passionate about spreading the Enneagram, teaching the Enneagram. It's of course it's my job. It pays the bills, but I would do it anyway. There's no turning back. I remember during the pandemic, my daughter said to me that if this goes really bad, Dad, you're still you still come from sales. You could probably still be a sales manager or something. And then she looked at me and then she smiled and she said, "No, Dad, that for you there's no turning back. You have to be an Enneagram teacher for the rest of your life." So it's almost like this inner flame. So I'm very passionate about teaching the Enneagram, spreading the Enneagram, making sure that as many people as possible get introduced to the Enneagram, and from there they can choose. And I'm very much at the moment, I'm into making sure that people learn the Enneagram deep enough so they don't compare the Enneagram with DISC, for example. I think it's pathetic. So I try to honor all my teachers, and I think I can mention them all. I really try to honor, and on top of that, I try to make it practical, so it can be used on a daily basis
Yeah,
in the grocery store with two children who's crying because they want to go home. So if you can't use the Enneagram in a daily setup, I don't think it's worth teaching.
absolutely, absolutely, and that's I agree with you completely. If you're not bringing it into practicality, then it's just an idea in your head that you entertain. And so, I've been involved in the chief work for a number of years, which is very eight-ish in orientation, in terms of, you know, if it isn't practical and you can't touch it, why are we bothering with it? And there's a way of, I don't know, have you had much exposure to the chief work?
Yeah, during the years, I haven't done much of the work itself. But but yes, I of course I'm familiar with Gurdjieff's work.
Yeah, and they all sort of lead towards the same thing around authenticity and truthfulness and directness. They might have a different languaging for it, but there's something about noticing where you've decided you have a limit and then, being encouraged to step past that to feel the discomfort of going past your limited belief or your idea and feeling the friction. And it seems like eights are quite good at moving into situations that have friction or something to push up against, whereas not all types are. So I'm not really sure where I'm going with this conversation at this point. I'm meandering a bit. Um, so if you were, looking back on your life, was there anything in particular that helped you or that you wished you had to support you when you were growing up and you were in your eightness and you had all that robust energy? Did you have a champion like mom or dad who said, "Oh, Klaus, go for it. You're fine. Your energy's beautiful." Or what was?
I had a pretty my dad was my number one role model when I was young. My dad was a sales director, later on a CEO. He was a business guy, and my dad was a part of Mensa, so he was highly intelligent. My dad actually thought he was a five, but I will bet you he was a self-preservation eight.
Hmm.
He
Hmm.
was very rough on the edges, and he taught me a lot. Later on, when I became bigger and both psychological and physical, I started crashing more into my dad, and he ended up being absolutely not my role model, and I didn't see him for many years before he died.
Oh,
I have a type two mother who taught me caring and nurturing and was sweet to me and sweet to my friends, and where my dad were more like the rough, like do this, do that. And I would have wished that I asked my mom many years ago, and I know it was a different time back in the 70s and 80s, that I asked her, I had so hard time believing that when she's a type 2, and I asked her, Mom, didn't you ever tell me that you loved me? And she said, she looked like shocked, and she
mm,
said, I told you a million times. And I said, why can't I remember?
mm,
So I wished that somebody
mm,
early on in my life have hold me and protected me so I could relax. So I was
mm.
had the feeling that I'm okay. I
Yeah,
don't have to fight for everything. I can
yeah,
go to bed and sleep like a small child, and there's somebody out there
yeah,
making sure that I'm safe.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I remember when I met that kind of nurturing when I was a very good swimmer when I was in my late teenage year.
Mm,
And when I went in this swimming club, there was a lot of hippies where we were drinking teas and we were hugging and we were kissing and guys kissing other guys. And it was we were it was like it was like Woodstock kind of. And I remember I was a part of me hated it. It was like, what the fuck is going on? And another part of me was like, I want more of this. It was like
yeah.
I can be safe here.
Mm,
I would have wished I learned that early on. And you said another thing about being passionate. I'm pretty aware that I'm over the hill, which means I'm probably lived more than half of my life.
mhm.
So I have lived for more than half of my life, and I'm aware to save my energy, and I'm very passionate about being more sweet, more gentle, more. I look forward, hopefully, to become a granddad where I can be cuddling, having a second chance to have small children and start all over again. So I can show myself and I can show my own children that almost like being kind of a Santa Claus, like like being that, yeah.
Yeah,
And if I have to go there, I have to be aware of my energy field.
yeah. Well, being a granddad is pretty amazing. I've got a little 5-year-old Felix who's a type 7, and he's just a beautiful, joyful, wonderful, funny kid, and my heart just sings just being in his presence, and it is really, it feels very healing to my own heart, and so my wish for you is you get a chance to do that because it's pretty amazing.
And one
Yeah,
thing I can't control.
yeah,
Somebody else has to make that decision.
yes,
That's not me to decide.
that's right, that's right. Well, Anything else you might want to talk about or add before we close? Anything that's important to you?
I think I will say something that I think I've said in many panels, and I'm so grateful for the good panels and good interviews, and thank you for that, Michael. That I've been that when people ask me or ask me to panels or something, I think I will say something uh, that for all the people out there that know Type 8, and I think it's important for most people to understand that 98, 99% of all the times where I hurt you or say something that hurt you, it was never my intention.
Yeah,
Never, ever. It was just the energy that went too far.
yeah.
So it's not, I've heard so many times, it's not what you say, it's the way you say it.
Hmm.
So I would love people out there to give us sometimes the benefit of the doubt that take whatever we say and put the energy and the volume level down and try to hear what are we trying to say.
Yeah,
And 1 to 2%, I'm really angry, and I'm unfortunately I mean what I say, and I will not apologize. I really really mean it. So, but I want people to understand. Give me the benefit of the doubt that most likely when I speak up loud, it's because I care.
absolutely. I think that's been my experience. That when the eight really cares, if they feel like they're not being heard or things aren't supporting the situation, then the tiger comes out. It's like I want to touch you with this, like boom. So that I think that's a really powerful one because I that sense that somehow the type 8 tried to personally hurt me, I think that's where the confusion gets, where people get mixed up in the energy. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, anything else before we go back to our daily life here?
No, I think it covers a lot of it. That's much
Okay.
more to talk about, but I think
Say that
for this
again.
time, I think there's a lot more to talk about in general, but I think it covered it, a lot of it.
Okay.
That's
Well,
my
if you think about it and you want to do a part two, that's always fun to do too. So I would just, if that occurs to you as like something you'd like to do, just make a list and then we'll do it again. And because I'm really appreciated all the things you've shared about your journey. It's very valuable. And I think other eights listening to it, it's going to just allow them to relax and go, oh, I'm not alone in this journey. So thank you so much for that. Really, really appreciate it. And
thank you.
yeah, much love to you. And uh, I'll be in touch down the road.
Thank you. See
Okay.
you, my friend.
Okay. Take care.
Bye.